Hi there, welcome. I'm Ewan the Therapist. This is a YouTube channel where we explore and look at issues around healing childhood trauma and all the things in and around that. If you're interested in that, you can click on the like and subscribe button, whatever side of the screen it's going to, and you'll get regular updates. Now today we're going to be covering, I think, what's a really interesting subject, which is where self-love does or doesn't fit into the process of healing childhood trauma. And I'd like to explore how the kind of thought or intention that I need to love myself or I should love myself in its own kind of way can get in the way at times and kind of be counterproductive to what we're looking for in this process of healing childhood trauma. Now, the issue of self-love is something that I guess within the healing, trauma, self-development community is just an assumed given. Of course, we should love ourselves more and we should love ourselves more fully. And it's almost like just considered scripture or gospel when it comes to healing. But I'd like to just today is examine this in a little bit more detail, kind of take apart what does it mean when I say I should love myself more? What does it create inside of us? That way of thinking could work against your best interests in terms of healing, and what an alternative may be to the thought, I should love myself more. So let's take this apart a little bit, because sometimes we say these things and just assume they make sense. But when we say this statement, I need to love myself more, I should love myself more, what does that mean? Because it's a little bit like saying I need to lift myself off the chair. So in the sense of one part of us is saying there is a part of us or me that lacks love, and I'm meant to take this other part of me that I'm assuming has love, and I'm meant to take that love and pour it into the part of me that doesn't have love. It's the same person. You know, the part of me that's loving myself is also the same part of me that doesn't love myself. So if I could just I had love to give to myself, why wouldn't it just be flowing? Why would I have to command, ask, and have this intent to love myself? Who is loving who? So what we see is the very nature of saying, I should love myself, immediately creates a division inside of ourselves between the part of me that should love myself and the part of me that needs to be loved. And another part, you could say, that's directing the loving part to then give some of its love to the unloving part. But really, are we that divided? Can we do that? Can we love ourselves from a part of ourselves that has love to a part of us that doesn't? And if we can, then why isn't it just already there? And this is where you can see it kind of comes apart a little bit. Like if you really look at what it is to love oneself, how does that actually really work? And the other thing that we see is in the act or the intention that I should love myself more, it does create a type of tension. It creates a sense of I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be, which is non-self-loving, and I need to be in this other place that's more self-loving. And I'm not loving myself enough, and I got to love myself more. And it can easily become this thing we need to be doing to correct a part of ourselves that feels like it's not correct or it's not whole. Yet the part of us that's telling us we need to love ourselves more feels there's something missing, there's something inadequate, there just isn't enough love. So that you can, if you kind of look at it, the part of you that's examining or motivating you to love yourself more, where's that coming from? Is it coming from a lack of something? Is it coming from a feeling of I'm just not enough and therefore I need to add love to me in order to be enough? And what we see is there's behind this, there can be behind this desire to love ourselves is a fear that we are not enough. There's a fear that we're not quite where we should be, and we've got to be adding this thing to ourselves, and we're calling it love. Yet how can a part of us that's afraid, that feels inadequate, generate the love that it needs? And this is where these, you might say, cliches or these things that get proposed like self-love, are worthy of some examination. They're worthy of these questions. Because an interesting question to ask is, where does love come from? If I'm expected to generate self-love, where does it arise from inside myself? And it won't arise from a feeling of inadequacy or lack, that I lack self-love, so I need to give myself. There's a fear beneath that. So a more curious question, a more helpful question may be, where does love come from? And what is love? What is it to really love ourselves? And if we look at a lot of religious traditions and East and West, there is this basic understanding that love is the ground from which all things arise. It's the ground of our being. It's the ground of who we are. It isn't a product we take from here and add to there. It's a fundamental aspect of who we are and our nature. And the love we have for ourselves is the love we have for others. It's this deep, abiding care and concern and compassion and kindness and desire for betterment, that what we have for ourselves is the same love we have for everyone and for everything. So as we generate love for others, we have love for ourselves, because we and others are not separate. We're this part of this kind of interbeing. So a more helpful question maybe to ask is, where does love arise from? Where am I inside myself when I feel love? And what gets in the way of that feeling? And this is where we come up and it comes to healing childhood trauma, is for many of us, as we go to generate or we go to kind of get in touch with that loving ground, we encounter a lot of pain. We encounter a lot of fear. We encounter a lot of shame. We encounter these obstructions, this painful aspect that we find it very hard to be with. But there's a famous Sufi mystic, Al-Ghazali, that said, in order to get to what you love, you have to be patient with what you hate. And this is why, when it comes to this process of healing childhood trauma, just saying, you need to love yourself more, and you're meant to just magically generate this self-love and then give it to yourself, it doesn't quite work that way. That's why it can feel very fake at times, or it feels very forced, or it feels very contrived, where we're like trying to generate this self-love when we can't even be with the pain of where we are. So to access the ground of who we are, to access our beingness that is love, then begin with, we have to be able to be with, to have the patience with what we hate, that we feel repelled by, that we feel that we exile or disown. And in that process of allowing ourselves to be with everything that's there, to be present with what's there, little by little, in very subtle ways, we start to access that deeper feeling, that deeper fountain of love. And the love for ourselves and the love we have in general is all part of the same love. It's the same fountain. So we don't have to love ourselves. We just have to be aware of the love that we are. And that's just a natural process rather than like an activity or a task that we give ourselves because we're not quite where we should be. And this is where I think people get the idea that I should love myself more, but in practice it feels very abstract, very remote. So where I think it's important to kind of remember when you're healing childhood trauma is to get a feel of, when I say I should do this, or I need to do that, where am I coming from inside myself? Is there a fear here? Is there a shame? Like, to have awareness of what's moving me feel this way. Because we don't ask our children to love us more. They just do. It just arises from them naturally. Or our dog, or any of these places where we access this kind of unlimited wellspring of love that's not inhibited by patterns and issues. We don't have to force it. It just arises naturally. And that love is in all of us in a very natural way. So my advice or suggestion is, it can help to just let go of this, I should love myself more, and to start to kind of return, get an understanding of, where am I inside myself when I feel love for myself or for others, and how do I bring presence to that, and how do I bring awareness to that, and how do I bring attention to that. And that may be a more productive, a more helpful approach than whacking the stick of I need to love myself more, and to just let go of the tension of you need to do anything, and just to allow yourself to be with what's there, and you might be surprised with what arises. Look, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you're interested in this type of stuff, please like and subscribe. You can also visit my website, youandthetherapist.com. I have a page there where you can book in for a free consultation if you're interested in possibly getting therapy. So please take care of yourself. Bye-bye, and see you later.